This week on The Travel Show. The holiday videos you didn't know you were making.
I feel angry about it. I don't like being watched all the time.
I think it's good for the security.
Through departures with a guide dog.
This is the moment of truth, Olga's first aeroplane experience.
Plus, life as a laird. Why it's been boom time for Scottish castles.
My great-grandfather built this house for entertaining.
Around the world, technology has become integrated into our lives, and no more so than in travel. We've got smart check-ins for flights, facial recognition passport control, and even translation apps to help you read menus. A lot of this is designed to make our lives easier, but this technology also creates something even more valuable: data. The holy grail for tourist chiefs is knowing exactly what visitors think about their attractions. Something a bit more sophisticated than a simple Q&A sample survey. Well, this city thinks it's cracked that, because earlier this year, Malaga introduced a new kind of technology which gives them a clearer idea of what people are doing and feeling. Malaga in Spain is one of the top tourist sites in Europe. With wonderful beaches, fantastic food, and over 40 museums, it attracts travellers from across the continent. Sunday morning, and these narrow streets are absolutely crammed with tourists from all around the world. Malaga is definitely a hot destination. Malaga had a strong resurgence after the pandemic, with large numbers of people heading to its beaches. To ensure that they stayed safe and didn't become overcrowded, the city introduced some technology to count how many people were around by using a network of cameras across the city.
We were very good analyzing prior to pandemic what's happening in the city, but we wanted to move forward to emotions. We wanted to know, is it possible to know the emotions of the people once in the city? Is it possible to know their feelings?
To do this, they introduced a new image recognition technology, which can capture people's faces, analyse the results in real time, and, they claim, work out how people are feeling. They can then address why some experiences aren't as good as others. The company behind the technology is Goli Neuromarketing.
We have an intelligent artificial brain that transform at real time the image of a camera to data.
Inside, they set up a demonstration of how the technology works. You're not going to give me some ideas, images, and I'm going to react.
The Sagrada
Familia. That reminds me of Barcelona, which is a lovely city. And look at that, happiness rocks straight up, but that's because I'm smiling maybe, yeah. But look, very high on the happiness scale for Sagrada Familia, okay? And a cup of coffee. That actually beats the Sagrada Familia. So I'd rather have a cup of coffee right now than see the Sagrada Familia. It causes me more happiness. I'm sure that's not true, but you know. Their toolkit currently identifies the age of visitors and can tell which country people's phones come from, which allows them then to build up a picture of which nationalities are visiting the city. Of course, I totally get why tourist chiefs want to know more about how visitors feel about their destination. And as a tourist, of course, I want a better experience. The question is, how far should that go? How would you feel if you knew that there were cameras watching you right now to see how happy you are as a tourist?
I think I would feel exactly the same as I'm feeling now.
Okay, because there are 2 cameras just there, doing that very thing. You don't think that's an invasion of your privacy, for example?
No, I think it's good for the security.
I feel angry about it. I don't like being watched all the time. It's not comfortable. What are they doing with that data? What are they doing with that information?
Although people's opinions on being observed are split, what is clear is that they're unaware of the technology being used. And this does raise some privacy issues, which I put to the head of tourism.
There are safety and security cameras everywhere in the world.
Safety and security, I understand. I don't want to be, mugged or attacked. That's fine, so I accept that. But giving you information, which I don't know where that information goes, without me knowing, some people might say, I'm not sure about that.
This is something that is happening for a long time in the retail malls, for example. In some luxury brands we all know, they have in the mirrors, they have inside these emotional sensors already for a long time. I think it's something that in the future many more cities will have it because it's super valuable information.
Both the city and the technology companies say that all the data is anonymous and no images are recorded in order to protect individual identities. Malaga is wholeheartedly embracing this technology, which they say will boost their appeal as a tourist destination. And so far, the software highlights two spots that people seem to love in Malaga the most. Top score in terms of happiness goes to the viewpoint overlooking the city, where smiles are just off the chart. But it's the park opposite the Roman amphitheatre at dusk where people's faces apparently say they just don't want to leave. And if you're planning a trip to Malaga in the near future, here are some of the things we think you ought to know. In a city with so much rich history, the Moorish Alcazaba Palace Fortress is worth a look. It was first built in the 11th century, and its passageways and gardens show off a mix of Roman, Arab and Renaissance styles. There's not much information on offer, so if you're a history lover, it might be worth paying extra for the tour. There are roughly 14 kilometres of beach in the city, well served by public transport and with good facilities. Many have their own distinct character. Malagueta and San Andres, for example, are pretty lively. But our tip is El Palo, said to be more popular with locals than tourists, which has fine sand, shallow waters and plenty of shade. And while you're on the beach, how about sardines for lunch? Espetos, or sardine skewers, are incredibly popular with locals. They're usually dirt cheap and super fresh thanks to the city's port and daily fish market. A little tip: those who know claim the sardines are best eaten in the months that don't have an R in the name.
Right, well there's still lots more to come up on the show, including...
On holiday with Olga, how a guide dog gets on board.
Where are you travelling to today, madam?
We're travelling to Edinburgh.
And the low-key pleasures of life in a Scottish castle.
Deliver, sir.
Right, we're dipping into our archives next. Airports can be confusing places at the best of time, but how would you navigate your way onto a plane without your sense of sight? Well, in the UK in 2021, Guide Dogs for the Blind celebrated its 90th anniversary. So we thought it an excellent time to ask blind traveller Lucy Edwards exactly how it's done.
Before the age of 17, I had usable vision. I would go out and about without a guide dog, without a cane, feeling quite free.
Where are you travelling to today, madam?
We're travelling to Edinburgh. I didn't really have many concerns about where I was going, or I didn't feel anxious at all. And what brought about my anxiety was feeling disabled by the world. I had a huge knock in confidence. I didn't want to leave the house, let alone leave the country. And I think that's why only now, 7 years down the line, I am tackling plane journeys, because I feel okay enough to want to go to other places. It's honestly so mentally draining after going to a new place as a blind person when you've never been there before. And I think that's why when I'm in an airport situation, I have to just say, oh, could you please help me?
So you're in like what looks like a shopping centre at the moment. So you've got, then obviously there's lots of people around, lots of luggage.
It feels really busy.
Yeah, it is really busy.
It's really important to not feel overwhelmed in airport situations with a guide dog. You have to rely on your partnership together to get around, and you have to admit to yourself as a blind person, yeah, I'm not going to know everywhere that I am today. And initially, when you're doing something like that, it's daunting.
So you squeeze through, guys.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you. So yeah, that was just too busy for her to get you through. So, and then you can carry on from there.
I think I could feel that she didn't know where she was going.
Yeah, that got very
through the
congested.
harness. That's when I get most anxious, when it's that crowded. I think from my point of view as well, because we're learning and I'm with you, I think that takes quite a lot of the stress to try and navigate those areas like we have just navigated. But it's
she's rolling around on her back with her legs in the air.
I think the main challenge will be getting up the steps and the loud noises of the aircraft. But because I'm doing it with Michaela for the first time, you know, hopefully that will make both of us less anxious. Here's Olga's aeroplane bag, ready for the flight. Everything's in here: collapsible dog bowl, blanket, a bone to make her feel chilled out, and quite an important thing, her restraining harness. She can't actually use her guide dog official harness on the plane to restrain her, because this bit of her seatbelt needs to click into the aeroplane belts, so she's safe. This is the moment of truth, Olga's first aeroplane experience. Bit nervous. We've got to get her restraining harness on so she's secure and fastened to the plane. We don't know how it's going to be, her walking up the steps, but it should be good. Exciting stuff.
She's looking very chilled at the moment.
Is she?
So
yeah.
Things are looking good.
Yeah, things are looking good. I'm so relieved that she's okay, and she's just been chewing the bone the whole flight. That's why I was able to have a bit of breakfast, because I thought, she's fine, sigh of relief, we're all good, guide dog okay, human okay. Now when I think of going on holiday as a non-sighted person, I think that I would love to explore the culture, the wine, the cheese, the food, the different languages, the smells, the touch, just a whole sensory experience really. Today has been a real eye-opener, if you'll pardon the pun. I have really enjoyed myself. I think the assistance was amazing, and now I know that Olga isn't going to be anxious on a plane, and she loves it and she can chew her bone. I am going to go on a lot more plane journeys, and I just feel so much more happy to embark on a journey, and I feel liberated.
All right, you've got a little step down, yeah.
Okay, got you.
There you go, and then you're just coming off that grid. Good.
Finally this week, with the coronation coming up in the UK very soon, we thought this a perfect occasion to talk castles. Did you know that since COVID, estate agents have seen a boom in people interested in buying an ancient Scottish pile? Well, we sent William Lee Adams to investigate.
There are more than 2,000 castles still standing in Scotland. From ancient ruins to modern-day fixer-uppers. According to the estate agent Savills, it's the most searched-for term on their website. Since the start of the pandemic, interest has soared in country living as people flee cities and try to escape the crowds.
That search for space and fresh air is a reality here in Scotland, where you can have your very own castle if you've got the money for it.
This is Balterson Castle, a 16th century tower home 50 miles southwest of Glasgow. It's safe to say it's in need of some serious restoration. James bought it in 1992 with great hopes to restore it back to its former glory, but finding the right investor has been hard.
Now, the stairwell, very wide for the period. It all speaks of good design and speaks of wealth. You would ascend these stairs, you wouldn't climb, you would ascend.
James, what was your vision when you purchased the castle?
Oh, I thought, I could see it. That's the problem. It's a burden if you have vision, because I could see the walls, the painted decoration, the tapestries. It's the old story of a boyhood dream. Some people want train sets. I wanted a castle at the age of 5. So this brings us into the kitchen area, the wine cellar, the storage for meat, and this wonderful arch here is a very common feature. And that fire that would have been in there for the cooking was kept on all the time, because stone is like a storage heater. There's a 16th century mill, there's an 18th century croft house down here, there's the 16th century tower and a 13th century abbey. They should be linked as a linear tourist destination.
I can tell this place brings you a lot of joy, you light up when you talk about it.
Yes.
But on some level, do you ever regret having purchased it?
Never, no, absolutely never. It's magic. It's this sense of place that just an ordinary ruined building doesn't have. There's a spirit in this place. I don't care if I don't restore it, but it should be restored by somebody, the next custodian, not owner.
On face value, owning a castle could cost less than a studio apartment in London. Cameron's been in the business of selling grand country homes for the past 15 years.
Well, if you take the example of the one behind me here, there's obviously a lot of work to do. You know, this is a property on the Buildings at Risk register. It's category A listed.
Okay.
So there will be restrictions in what you can and can't do, materials that you've got to use. So there are limitations and considerations that also have significant cost implications.
Do people have any misconceptions when they start their search for a castle?
Yes, yeah, the first thing to highlight is they don't all come with a title. Many people assume that you become Lord of the Manor, but it's in fact not quite that case.
But what happens if your family already has the castle? How do you keep it from becoming a financial drain? Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Lovely to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Right.
Should we go in? This is quite the welcome. Hello. Ali's family has lived on these grounds since the 1500s. Though his great-grandfather built this place at the turn of the 20th century, moving the family out of the now ruined castle. The couple met in Vietnam and lived in the US before moving back to Ali's ancestral home 8 years ago.
What was the state of the place when you first saw it?
It was winter when I first arrived and saw the place for the very first time. The blinds were drawn, there were so many dust sheets on tables and furniture. Everything was really dark, had a bit of a morgue feel to it, to be honest. So this room is particularly personal to me because it is very much based on my idea of Victoriana meets East Asian.
The estate had mostly welcomed hunting parties. Anne wanted to move away from that tradition and focus on other types of gatherings, like weddings, though it needed a major revamp.
We have done about 48 bedrooms, 15 kitchens. I am not a designer. I don't know anything about interior design. And I had to learn very quickly, and I made a lot of mistakes. I think that itself is overwhelming, but it is also like running a business and recruiting and raising really young children. I mean, there were moments in our lives between Ali and I where we are on the brink of divorce, you know, for sure.
And that's my great-grandmother there, and that's my great-grandfather up there. He was the guy that built this place.
A lot of people dream of owning a castle and they don't think through the reality. Do you have any advice for potential buyers?
If you are thinking about doing anything like this and your first motivation is profitability, it is not going to work. I love my husband, and this is me, you know, helping to fulfill his dream. and Ali, it was significantly easier for him to be motivated to do this project because it is his ancestral home.
They get a lot of guests from abroad, including from the US, and they all want that castle experience. It's fair to say everything is over the top, but the American in me loves it.
We just keep it to ourselves.
Oh, there we go. Okay, this isn't awkward at all. Uh-oh. Oh! Great view of the castle. Here on my back. I think it's game over for me.
Dinner soon comes around, but before we sit down, Anne says she has a little surprise.
What? What is this?
This is for you to pick out your outfit for dinner.
Okay, this was obviously for me. The fairies in Southwest Scotland are working tonight.
I think you should definitely try this. Oh my God, that is so you.
Part of the experience involves an outrageous dinner party with the guests.
What would your ancestors think about what's going on tonight?
I think they liked fun nights. Well, you know, my great-grandfather built this house for entertaining.
But I'm curious, when Anne married you and moved here and suggested these changes, how did that sit with you?
Actually, it was fine. And I wouldn't have done it without her. So it was good to have that breath of fresh air.
Owning and running a castle as a tourist attraction is not for the faint-hearted, but if you can make it work, it's not a bad life.
Well, that sadly is all for this week, but coming up next time,
we're reliving some of our favourite trips to Greece. From the time Addy followed in the footsteps of Hercules by taking a dip in some legendary open-air baths.
Goddess Athena created these springs for her favourite hero. I think it's quite fitting for someone like me.
To when Krista joined the crew of a replica ancient Greek galley to get a taste of life at sea 2,500 years ago.
until then, you can find us on the BBC iPlayer and on social media too. We're in all the usual places, along with lots of other great travel content from around the BBC. But for now, from me, Rajan Datar, and the rest of the Travel Show team here in Malaga, thanks for watching and goodbye.